I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo.
And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. I just wanted to say hi real fast. That's for Dan, see what he's missing. But we're headed back to the Delta Quadrant as we discuss Voyager Season 3 episode Remember, and I have a special returning guest today from the It's Got Star Trek podcast, Patrick. Yay, welcome back.
I'm trying to see where the fake green screen
where the hands
seeing my hands.
There it goes, like right in front of you. Jazz hands, is that it?
Thank you very much, Jesse, for having me back.
I really appreciate it. It's been a couple of seasons since you were last here. So how are things over at It's Got Star Trek with you, Dan, and Jesse?
Oh, things are proceeding well. Just doing the usual, covering old Star Trek when no new Star Trek is on, covering new Star Trek when new Star Trek is on, and just trying to have a fun time while we're doing it. The thing is when we set about making, we're like, we want to make a podcast, a new Star Trek podcast. We wanted to do something a little different. So we got 3 white men together and thought that would be, that's something the world really needed more of. 3 white guys who think they're funny. Their friends are like, you're so funny. You should have a show. So, we went ahead and did that. And that's It's Got Star Trek. And I don't know, we're at episode 300 and I don't know, something now. So
it's insane. It's so crazy. Here's the thing. Some people, anytime I'm all like, you guys got, if I recommend your podcast, I'm always all like, you guys got to listen. I was like, but beware. This is like 30 plus years of friendship. All over, just a heads up.
and watching a lot of that Star Trek when it was airing, which is fun. It's always fun to interact with the fans who are coming to Star Trek later on, and like yourself included, right? It's I always enjoy seeing, the interesting different perspectives of what era people grew up in, when did they get into Star Trek, and the various ways that it has impacted or influenced their lives. And that can definitely be very different or sometimes very similar, no matter the differences between the way folks came to the franchise.
Exactly. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because that's the same reason why I like to have these conversations and hear people's perspectives and see, how, and you guys kind of took me under your wing, a little bit, especially as I was a baby podcaster, and I'd be like, hey, you in green shirt. I was like, I got questions. So yeah, really, really appreciate it. But before we jump into all of this, I'm going to talk about real fast, not just one sponsor, but 2, because if people don't know, I just joined the Trek Geeks family, and I'm super, super excited. And, Bill and Dan asked me to join, and I was all like, seriously? Me? And they're like, well, we really want some passionate Star Trek fans. And they're like, nothing's more passionate than you about Beverly Crusher. I was like, honored. So, but no, I am really honored and I'm super excited. But as everyone knows, I do talk about Cherry Tree. If you love Borg computers, cats on Borg cubes, or even now little Defiant or Voyager USB sticks, head over to Cherry Tree and use my code CrusherCombo6 to get 6% off your order. And that's over at mycherrytree.com. And of course, Trek Geeks is sponsored by Fansets. So if you want to head over there and get amazing pins that are full of character, use the code Trek Geeks and you can get 10% off of your order at fansets.com. And of course, follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated and Fansets. So just wanted to mention that real fast. Of course, I got to now take just a 5-second break because Beverly is now wanting to get out of the room. But while I take her out, because she's like, I'm over this, I always like to ask a different question. It's been a couple of seasons since you were last here, and the question this season is, what female character do you find inspiring?
And now specifically to Star Trek, I presume?
Yes.
All right. Well,
And don't think I'm ignoring you as I walk away real fast. I will be
know.
back.
I understand. I'm a cat person, a cat dad as well. That's a great question. It is a very tricky question. One thing I've enjoyed about Star Trek, as well as it's part of why I also enjoy like Studio Ghibli films, for example. I've often been interested in female protagonists, strong female characters, and particularly, which is an issue in a lot of episodes, and perhaps even in the episode we're talking about tonight, is who are the people writing the stories that center on female experiences and perspectives. And so, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Deep Space Nine lately. So Kira comes to mind, Kira Nerys. When I was younger, I had a very strong infatuation with Jadzia Dax, but that's not quite the question you're answering. But, honestly, I'm not trying to suck up here. Well, I think I've mentioned it before on your podcast that Beverly Crusher, in particular, growing up, because I started watching TNG live on TV as it aired in season 3. That's about where I entered into there, watching it regularly. And I was always really impressed with Dr. Crusher and her tenacity, problem solving, its professionalism, etc. While at the same time, I mean, she was a character that she wasn't just a doctor, right? She had other passions like theater and dancing. She was a good friend. It was a well-rounded character. And at the time, when I'm watching that as a young child, I did not necessarily understand that was perhaps a somewhat rare portrayal of that type of character at that time and previously. So when I became more aware of that, I think retroactively, I appreciated Dr. Crusher even more. So at the risk of appearing to ingratiate myself to the host of this lovely podcast, I'll say Dr. Crusher.
I mean, it's the perfect answer. You can't go wrong. Okay. However, I do agree about Jadzia and Kira, and there's a lot of amazing female characters, and we even got amazing characters in Academy. And if anyone comments on this thing, you will be blocked. I'm just going to say that right now.
I mean, I know we're talking about something else tonight, but just I'm putting that in. Academy I loved that shows, and much more that I even expected, and it was because of the strength of the performances and the writing and the characters that they chose. Really great stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. But like he was mentioning, we are talking about a very unique episode from Voyager, and it is called Remember. And so here is a clip from that episode.
But I'm sure you can see as clearly as I can that some friends are less suitable than others.
Like Dathan?
Yes. You promised you wouldn't see him anymore, and then I heard you were talking to him again the other day.
He came up to me on the street. I couldn't help it.
Corinna, don't you see I am thinking of him as well as you? Now, you only encourage him this way, and that isn't very fair, is it?
What isn't fair is that you treat him like everybody else. He's different.
All right, so here are the stats of that episode. So the air date was October 9th, 1996. It was directed by Winrich Colby, teleplay by Lisa Klink, written by Brandon Braga and Joe Banoski. And the in-universe date was, of course, excuse me, 50203.1 to 50211.4, which was in 2373. So, all right, let's just get into it. I mean, what the hell's going on? What's happening here? I mean, at first you're like, all right, she's having some dreams about, but then when you're seeing her as a totally different character, and you're like, what the heck? And even she's actually, what's hilarious is the audience's reaction is her reaction. She's like, what the heck? So watching this episode, what are your thoughts of how it began and everything, and what you're like?
Well, and it goes back to that, different perspectives depending on, how deep into the franchise you are, what your knowledge of the lore is, etc. I recall when this episode came on, I think people who have watched a lot of Star Trek, particularly TNG and previous Voyager, yeah, some of the mystery is undercut because it's sort of the whole thing is presented right there. It's like we're transporting a group of colorful telepathic people and then some strange stuff is happening. You can kind of predict where it's going. Where I do give credit to the story, because I do think it's a little odd. It's an incredibly difficult and horrible topic. When you think about it, it's kind of like what would have happened if the Nazis had won. That's what it sort of seems like it's presented as.
I thought that.
Right? And that's an interesting thing. And I think they do some effective and interesting things with that kind of plot line. But maybe it was a little too heavy for what they were willing to put on screen. And then there is, I mean, I don't know. I think that's part of it, where it's like a really interesting idea using a sort of tropey sci-fi Star Trek thing so that we kind of can somewhat predict what's going to go on. However, at the same time, they did some, the imagining a person giving up their lover to execution, even if they didn't fully understand that was going to happen. That's pretty intense. But then there is some disappointment when you think, well, you could have examined that a little bit more and maybe pulled back on some of the other things they focused on this episode. I think Voyager sometimes would have some difficulty figuring out what kind of tone they were willing to do on an episode, and maybe the compromises don't always work out so well.
No, the one thing that I had learned, especially as we got to the end of the episode as I was watching it, was they basically erased their history.
Yeah.
Right? So like all the the one thing that we mentioned is just it's so important to share the history, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. Like show that it happened and honor those who died or who was tortured, whatever. Because when you try to hide it, it's like those deaths or anything bad that had happened was meaningless.
Yeah. And you might repeat that same mistake, which is, of course, a message implied, at least, if maybe not. I mean, I guess it's directly stated in this episode.
A little bit, yeah.
But not as strongly as you'd think, right? You'd think it's kind of the whole point of the episode and just a little thing at the end.
And then it ended. Yeah. Right. And that was kind of like really at the end, it was like, oh, now we're getting somewhere. And then,
I know, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's where it was like this whole buildup was, like a lot of it was almost meaningless. Like you could have really taken out a good chunk of 15 minutes just to get from her to, okay, I got these memories, figure it out. Person died. Then but there was like little bits in the middle that we really didn't need. It was almost just like filler. Because then I was like, 47 minutes is done. We got to wrap it up. So that's where it's like, I don't know. It just felt very anticlimactic, right?
Yeah.
But one of the thing is, and again, we kind of touched a little bit on this earlier in this episode. Would it have been different if these memories were like put in Chakotay versus
Well, now I have a question for you, because again, I know you're newish to the franchise, although you've watched a huge portion of it at this stage. How far along are you in your Voyager watching journey? You're finished. So you have seen, and this may come across as ironic, you have seen the episode Unforgettable, which is a Chakotay episode where there's some similar things going on as in this episode, where a person shows up on the ship and claims that she had been on the ship previously, but that her species can make people forget, Men in Black style, and that she had this whole love affair with Chakotay. And then there's this whole mystery about, was she telling the truth or was it a trick or whatever? I like when we did that on our podcast, I mean, that we were thinking, comparing back to this episode, remember, there are some things that overlap. That episode, though, was just interminably boring, and any potentially interesting thing, subjective opinion, of course, but any kind of thing that they could have teased out in that episode, which also focused on isolationism and extremism in terms of the government and how far they were willing to go to protect their culture, etc. None of that was particularly well examined, and it was a confusing and an odd story. This episode, remember, I think disappoints in some ways because of where it doesn't go or doesn't go enough. On the other hand, I was impressed with the overall kind of structure. I was entertained and engaged while watching it. I wasn't sitting there thinking this is the best thing ever, of course, but because we're dealing with good actors and some basic tropes. The Romeo and Juliet trope is there a little bit, so we have some things that our brains can hook onto, and the characters, the Inarans themselves, as we learn a little bit about them. Again, they're toying with us, I think, the writers, with our knowledge of episodes like in TNG, the episode where similar situation, telepathic people come on board, although in that case it's Deanna Troi who is being mentally assaulted.
Yeah.
And so I think they know the people watching this episode of Voyager have probably seen that episode with Deanna, and they're thinking, oh, maybe it's this old dude, who's teaching Janeway the instrument. Maybe he's not so nice as he seems, So they laid down a few little breadcrumbs that, if you're a fan of the franchise, you might be wondering about. And that was, again, at least interesting. But as you noted, I agree with you. Then you sort of get to this point, you're like, wait a second, there's only like a minute left in this episode, and now they're just kind of wrapping it all up at once at the last moment. But yeah.
No, it's true. I think the problem with it was Unforgettable?
Yes, Unforgettable.
Yeah.
We're not being hilarious there. We are legitimately, we will forget the name of that episode because it is a forgettable episode. Yeah.
I think that one, like you said, they kind of missed the plot points a little bit where it wasn't as interesting. This one had a mystery to it because B'Elanna was trying to be all like, what the heck am I seeing? Is this true? Is this not? What is happening? And so you're seeing her journey, and that's where you as an audience member watching this, you're intrigued. You're trying to, like you said, figure out the little breadcrumbs and trying to figure out the puzzle. Now, still though, it was like, again, it just so confusing because sometimes where I was just, I only got to watch it once. I saw it today, but it's still kind of fresh. But it's been a while since I have seen it. And the one thing was, I was like, well, is the lady nuts? And she did this, because she is old and dementia or something, as they were trying to say, and this is not real. Or is this real? And they're trying to hide it. And so you could understand why B'Elanna was like losing her shit.
It was plausible. They set up a largely plausible scenario, which rode that line of her friends and colleagues noting that B'Elanna was acting differently, right? I like that because it's always annoying when people you've worked with for 10 years on the characters like don't notice that people are acting completely strangely and maybe something's wrong. In this case, there was concern, oversleeping, and this B'Elanna was acting unusual. So I was glad that they set that up, and the writers I think were very good. They did the telepathic thing with Janeway learning the music from the elderly Inar, and I can't recall the character's name, to set up. Sure, to set up that's a possible thing that can be done, becomes more important later. So they also, and part of this is the direction and the production design. They also made it so that you would also believe that the elderly man or some of these other people might have sinister intentions. I think, and unfortunately, I looked up his name. I forget the name of the actor who played the elderly, the elder Inaran, but I thought he did a really good job of writing that line of charming, happy, trust. You can trust this old grandfather man. But you could also believe it if he was like a shady alien monster creature who wanted to genocide a bunch of people, right? Which is helpful because, again, the tonal issues in this episode are, Harry kind of having some high school like butterflies in his stomach about talking to a girl, switched with, compared to, total genocide of marginalized people. So it's a hard total balance to ride,
Just a little bit, just a little bit. I did like to kind of go along where you were saying that the crew noticed that there was something wrong, which we got with like Allegiance in season 3 with like everyone's like, Picard's acting a little weird. That's not normal. But even Harry had stepped in when she started, when B'Elanna started to say stuff. He's like, no, listen, she might, he had no idea what the heck she was talking about, but he's like, but let's give her a shot. Let's see what she has to say. Yeah. Which Janeway also had a teeter between, trying to be diplomatic to these people, but also trying to also trust her crew member, which you definitely do see later on, especially at the end of the episode, where she's like, I believe you believe this, whether it is just a dream or it's facts, like, period. But there was nothing Janeway could do because there was no facts, right? Yeah. She's just going off these memories that could be a dream. So, but kudos to Janeway for being like, so they're leaving. I'm gonna go. And B'Elanna was like, oh, yeah, I'll go say bye. And she's like, yeah, you do that.
My favorite part about that scene was, and I almost think the director must have suggested this, or maybe one of the actors did, because that was the way they acted that out was just like, a romantic comedy movie. It was like, the flight is about to leave from gate C and there's been a delay because of the storm. FYI.
You got 15 minutes. Yeah.
It was cute. It was now again tonally weird to be like, you go help inform them of their own history of genocide. I'm not going to say it outright because it's cuter to just imply it and then be like, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. But I mean, she went to the right person because here is this younger generation being like, understanding that her people are supposed to be these wonderful species and then hearing that they weren't at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, not to, I guess go back to your Nazi comment, but like people of Germany, they definitely don't want to think about that. But, it's a time in their history that happened. And so this was something that she was just like, I will share this with you and you could take it as it is. And then see where it goes. At least B'Elanna felt seen in the sense that she knew she was at least, because she believed that old woman, that she was passing on those memories that the old woman had said, like, don't let the memories die.
She was able to do something, because when you feel powerless against something so terrible, that produces obviously anxieties and stuff. It's something I think almost all of us, probably all of us, are familiar with in some sense. But anything that can, even if you don't have a guarantee that it's going to be helpful, she at least had the opportunity to do something that will plausibly help. Maybe not, but there's an opportunity there. And it reminded me of what I thought was, they didn't draw a lot of attention to this scene, but I thought it was one of the most important parts of the episode and one of the most sort of well-written and to me, somewhat upsetting parts was that flashback where they're giving the tour, right, of the old village, and they go to that gate where I forget what was the name, the regressives, right? They kept calling
the regressives, yeah.
And they give that little speech about how we keep this here to remember not to be like those dirty, horrible, diseased, dumb people who kill themselves. And there's that young girl who could even be the woman we see later. I'm sure she isn't, but the young girl is like, we will make sure to remember that those people were bad. And I thought that was a very subtle way of actually calling attention the potential to weaponize this idea of remembering, right? Because that's the name of the episode is Remember. The point of the episode is that it is important for us to, even if it's difficult and causes guilt, to remember these terrible events in history, these terrible mistakes that people have made, so that we can do our best to avoid making them. It is important to remember. But that scene shows us that you can also utilize the idea of like, we're going to remember the lies, not just omissions, right? But the lies that we tell ourselves and that we're telling you children, that these stupid people we gave them a paradise and they killed themselves with disease and infighting, right? We know, we can infer from what we know about the characters to know that that's complete propaganda and untrue. And so I thought that was a very interesting point. Again, not a lot of attention called to it. I'm glad it was in there, and it wasn't particularly well interrogated in the manner of the story, but it did jump out at me as being sort of like the, oh my gosh, that little girl being like, oh, I'll remember how horrible these people are. And you're like, that's how this works. That's how this process happens.
It's basically a way to how easy it is to rewrite history.
Yes, precisely.
If you can tell a lie in a certain way that is so intriguing and so interesting, you want to hear it and be like, oh yeah, that's how, because sometimes where it's like people will exaggerate the truth because exaggerating the truth just sounds better than the actual truth. Sure. Right. Yeah. And that exaggeration can also be a little white lies, just to be like, whatever, a little sugar coat where but how easy, and then it spreads like wildfire, and a lot of times, like even in my job, I'm very much like, okay, I heard this from one person, from another person, but I have to be careful because just going from 1, 2, and 3, by the time it gets to me, I'm all like, how much did it change? Like, where did the truth start to slip away a little bit? And that is investigate.
And that is a process. It's like the game of telephone. It is a process that does not require any maliciousness necessarily along the chain. It can simply be misinterpretations, different interpretations, miscommunications that can lead to, different information or a different perspective on things. So you're right. It is a difficult thing to navigate. It's why it's good not to just listen to one person and say, okay, if they say that, then that's
it's
what
the
I'm
truth.
gonna think. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. One thing that I don't allow in my job, and it just kind of came to me because it's the battle of assumption. Because a lot of this that we were seeing, the regressors or whatever they called themselves, they assumed. Yeah. Right? It was all, they assumed these were bad people, so they must die. And they assumed they were bad because of X, Y, and Z. And how easily just assuming and not knowing the truth can be so much harm, more harm than good. I did want to mention, though, and I didn't get a chance to look it up, but I'm 99% sure. The actress who played the old lady who ended up dying and had the memories that gave to... Wasn't she one of the telepaths from Violations?
In TNG, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. She had the that interesting, like, kind of Pippi Longstocking hair.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Where I was like, interesting that she's in two very like empathic, rapish kind of, because
definitely
just to
rapish.
say,
Mentally rapish,
right? Because she forced these memories on Bellata. I mean, it was not consent. Okay.
Yes. Well, and that's again another thing that was not thoroughly examined in this episode. It was touched on, this idea of consent, but it was touched on sort of in the context of the red herring of us making us think that this older gentleman may be the bad guy, which I think is something they did in Violations as well, maybe to mislead which character was causing the problem. But yeah, I knew she was that character, but I actually hadn't made the connection that you're right. She's sort of an instrumental character, more so perhaps in this episode, but definitely in both episodes, about telepathic invasion. Ugh.
Yeah. I've actually done one of those where we had one particular, just not even a background, but, a supporting actor who was on a one-off episode. I can't remember his name, but he played Joe Brill, who was the alien in Suspicions that pretended to die and then actually killed the Ferengi and Beverly had to figure out. And of course, it was all about the metaphasic shielding because that was the first time we had heard about it. Well, then pop into season 4. She's the captain of the Enterprise. She wants to do the metaphasic shielding. And that lieutenant was the same actor that played Joe Brill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was all like,
oh, that's fun.
So he's only doing episodes with metaphasic shielding. He's all like, hey, me, I did it before. So I felt the same way with her. So I'm like, she's going to be doing empathic, violated episodes. I don't know. But it just was interesting how that just happened. And then the other part is that the character names were so similar because that old man was like Jor Brell when the one in TNG was Joe Brill. And I even had a double take. Like I looked at the subtitles. I was like, did they name another character Joe Brill? They're just running out of names. I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine.
There's only so many alien names out there, apparently, in Star Trek. A lot
just
of...
gotta...
apostrophes, and they're going to move on to umlauts in the next variation of Star Trek, I'm sure.
Most likely. But yeah, I just thought that was a similar fun fact for everybody because I like to do those.
Well, I have a question for you. I don't know if it's on your list of discussion topics, but what do you think about Neelix's balls? The cleaning balls.
He was a little too happy.
the Benoit balls that he was it was Chakotay he was talking to, right? He's like, you just put the ball, you put them in your hand, you just roll them around a little bit, and your hands are clean. And I was like, what is going on?
Here's the thing, bless the actor's heart for who plays Neelix. The thing is that there's a reason why people just were annoyed by the character. It's because of those kind of moments. Yeah. Like I don't know what they were trying to go with when it came to him, and granted, there are some great Neelix episodes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Ethan Phillips is great. Like the actor, and we talk about this on our podcast all the time. We often refer to Neelix as a space creep. But at the same time, Ethan Phillips is a wonderful actor and does a great job with what he's given. It's just, especially early on, there's like,
the fact he's dating a 2-year-old.
There's that.
And
when they pick him up, I mean, he's like a con man,
right?
Creepy. Yeah, he's a space creep.
He's a Ferengi. He was kind of like the Ferengi, right?
Yeah,
where it was like, how does this benefit me and everything? And he got better, obviously, which is cool. That's good for him. But it's those moments that people remember, right? They kind of forget.
It's cute, it's fun. It's an episode about, genocide and hatred and, all that. But, you get the Neelix's balls in there. That's important.
Yeah, we got to just find it somewhere in any of that. Oh, my goodness. So we do have someone in the chat. Yay! I completely forgot to even, promote this episode. So sorry, Patrick. But
oh, no worries. After the fact.
This is Need a Silly Username. There you go. Oh, you're right. And I think I was talking about the old lady violation episode. Yeah. But thank you for joining us in the chat. We really appreciate it. But overall, again, this episode just didn't have a satisfying ending. I kind of understand where they were trying to go with, because she did keep her promise. Yeah. She made sure that the memories stayed alive. Mm-hmm. By giving them to that other, empath. Mm-hmm. And so, but I still felt just like,
Yeah. Now, I would suggest, so if folks out there are interested in screenwriting, right? And I must caveat by pointing out that I have no experience in this, and there is no reason one should pay any attention to what I'm about to suggest. However, I'm going to suggest it nevertheless. If you are interested in screenwriting, I think it's a fun exercise to take this episode, remember, and then let's just go with Unforgettable. Take Unforgettable, watch those episodes, and examine how the plot is structured. Forget about the entertainment value or any of that. Just examine how the story is put together. Because this episode, remember, I'm right on board with you, Jesse, in that I think it is an underwhelming episode in a lot of ways, and there's some goofy stuff. But as a writing exercise, it is structured very nicely. in terms of how they start out, and then with the B'Elanna having the dream, and then at the end of the episode mirroring that. There's a lot of really nicely kind of by the numbers screenwriting going on here, but it'd be a fun exercise to take this same story and see if you can make it better. Come up with your own version that's the basic idea, but plays around with it a little more. If you go watch Unforgettable, you're just going to be confused because things that like it's as if scenes were moved around, or they added stuff, or or maybe they didn't have enough and they just added some scenes. Who knows? But yeah, I would say that's one positive thing I think that you can say about this episode, that it is, even if it's a bit by the numbers in some ways, it is well structured.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the ending is an interesting ending in the sense of like, okay, she passed it on, and like you said, that mirroring the beginning and the end, the book ending it basically. Yeah. I just think I was a little bit more underwhelmed in the sense that I won't know what's going to happen. Yeah, but I guess a lot of Star Trek episodes that happens. Like, it's
and especially Voyager. I mean, Voyager by definition is like, see ya. We have a long way to go. So we will see you all. Well, we won't see you later. That's the point.
We won't see you later. Yeah, never again.
In TNG or TOS, there was at least the possibility that it might go back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Voyager is like, no, we're out.
We're gone. Peace out. No, for sure.
Good luck with whatever nonsense we just did, good or bad. There's not going to be a Lower Decks follow-up on this particular story. It's too far out.
No, there will be a Lower Decks follow-up. It will be in their history class, and they're going to learn something from it and write a paper about it.
Yeah,
Boimler Willis. Yeah. But let's see what our listeners thought of the episode with the tricorder rating.
My tricorder.
Again, I don't think this is a favorite. I got 1 vote. And here's the thing. I promoted this. 1 vote. So I had 5 terraforming, 4 citizens award, 3 regressives, 2 negotiations, and 1 secret. Mm-hmm. And that 1 vote was for citizenship awards. Yeah. Where are you on this list?
I probably put it at a 3 for me. It's a middling episode, but it's not in any way kind of a terrible or frustrating episode. Sometimes you have episodes where there's such a great idea and they mishandle it that it's annoying and you're frustrated that they just didn't get that across. Here, there wasn't as much of that frustration. It was more kind of like, okay, well, you could have made a few different choices and made a slightly more interesting story here, but I was not unengaged during it. And I do think it has a few fascinating, interesting, important ideas, messages. A little sad that it didn't go into them as deeply, but I can imagine people watching this episode and taking away a useful life lesson. And so for me, that elevates it above some stories that, and I'll use, again, sorry to beat up on Unforgettable, I didn't understand the point of the episode. There didn't seem to be any sort of moral or philosophical dilemma or anything. It just seemed to be some like weird thing that they went through. This one at least has some
story to it.
It's not an incoherent. There's a coherent I thinking about the importance of not erasing history. Right? Good idea there. Yeah.
Yeah. Very true. I kind of teetered between 2 and 3 just because I some moments are great and then some I'm like, I don't know. So I'm going to do a 2.5. I'm the host of this podcast. I can do whatever I want.
You can do whatever you want.
But I can do whatever I want. So it's going to be 2.5 regressive negotiations.
All right.
There we go. Because again, you made a good point. It's a good message of saying like, don't erase history, right? Everyone needs to know even our dark past and things that happen. Don't erase it.
And it's not by the way, look, we know that's not an original point, but it's kind of one of the points that's helpful to keep making in different contexts, right? Because we
need to keep remembering.
We need to remember the point, right?
We need to remember the point.
Yeah.
So, but I think just the way it was handled, like I said, there was just certain things I'm like, did we really need that? Mm-hmm. These certain scenes, like, I felt like the ending, it was just abruptly cut off, that I felt like it needed more fulfilling ending. And so that's where I've been teetering. Probably more closer to the 3 than I am the 2, but I will put out a 2.5. But not a horrible episode, just not a favorite. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But let's now see what my next episode is going to be with the Sick Bay Spitter. Well, it looks like we're going back to the Enterprise.
That's a good
I
one.
just left the Enterprise a couple episodes ago, but that's okay. It's fine. But yes, Ceasefire is the next episode. That is going to be on July 10th. And special guest is going to be John Baker. He reached out to me over on Blue Sky. So very excited about that. Do you have any fond memories of Ceasefire? Or
I recall enjoying that episode. I don't want to give any spoilers. I'm an Enterprise fan. It is what it is. There were compromises. There's a lot of interesting on-screen and behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on in that era of Trek. But I have always been a supporter of people watching and enjoying Enterprise, and especially as it goes along. So I think I'm excited to see your coverage of Ceasefire.
Can't wait. I'll definitely be hearing from Abby and Chris from First Fight Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully I'll hear from you, since you said you have some thoughts. But let's go ahead and jump into my Redhead Alert. All right, guys, don't forget about my giveaway. Once I reach 1,000 followers on Instagram and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'll be giving away an autographed photo from Gates McFadden to one lucky listener. If you're enjoying my content, please help spread the word by sharing it with your friends. Every share brings me one step closer to reaching my goal. And of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Submit your penny by recording a 60 to 90 second audio clip at crushercombo.com, or email your thoughts to crushercombo@gmail.com, or you may DM me or comment on Threads or Blue Sky. I'd love to hear from you. I may feature your penny and share it live on the show. And my Patreon shoutouts go to Leslie, Dave, Grayson, and Elisa, who are my Commander patrons, Chuck, Engineer Mark, and Johannes Borg, who are my Admiral patrons. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, just head over to patreon.com/Crusher Combo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month. All right, Patrick, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please let the listeners know where they could find you.
Great. No, and thank you for inviting me. You can find us wherever the finest and not so fine podcasts are distributed. It's Got Star Trek. Just search for that. YouTube, all the podcast stuff, or itsgotstartrek.com. That'll get you to our website. And feedback at itsgotstartrek.com is the email if you want to email us. And finally, at It's Got Star Trek on the social medias, most of them, try to keep it simple. Would love to have people reach out and, give us a listen if you like. We've had Jesse on a couple times, right? And I look forward to having Jesse on again sometime very soon. So thank you again for letting me join you to talk about Remember.
I know.
An episode that rates somewhere between 2.5 and 3, according to two of the main Star Trek authorities on the internet, you and I, Jesse.
I mean, we do our best. It's fine.
That's right. You got to shoot for the stars, right?
Shooting for the stars. Here's the thing, though. I will say that I think the very first episode you had me on your show, was that Masterpiece Society?
It may have. I can't remember. It may have been. I can't remember.
It was either that one or it was one of the episodes that I hated so much, and I was all like, "You did this on purpose."
Yeah, which I don't think we did, but nevertheless delighted in, because sometimes it's the rage can be so fun. It's true.
The rage was full. all
look,
fours.
you've got your randomizer to help you select an episode. We do the same thing. Dan, my co-host Dan, has created an algorithm, and part of the fun of that is that you see some random stuff. Although sometimes you get an episode where it's like so like banal that you're like, what are we going to talk about for this whole episode?
Yeah. I mean, you guys figure it out. Again,
We
30
try to
years of
figure it
friend,
out.
like you do.
You try. I mean,
Like,
you can't.
you do
As
your
I often
best.
say, they can't all be winners, but we do try our best.
It's all Trek, right?
It is absolutely.
All-
I'm about to go down to the basement studio and record an episode on Deep Space Nine's Fascination. So that'll be coming out this Monday. Should be a fun episode. Loxana Troy, Love Potion, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare, all sorts of good stuff on that one. So that's
this
something
is
to look
going to
out
be a
for.
hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm already knowing Dan's going to be frustrated. Jesse's going to say something so sarcastic in the background that it takes you 5 minutes to realize, did he just say that? And then oh my gosh, like guys, you have to check them out. Definitely
Great.
check them out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jesse. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, absolutely. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. And as always, live long and prosper. Bye.
Crusher out.